exciting episode of the OKRs Q&A Podcast, also known as the OKR Corral, where OKR Insight is the king. I'm your host, Tim Meinhardt, President and CEO of Atruity, an OKR consultancy headquartered in Washington, D.C. In this episode, I have the pleasure of interviewing Tony Hughes. Tony Hughes is a best-selling author, has more than 500,000 followers of his blogs, and is the most read person in LinkedIn on the topic of B2B sales leadership. He has over 35 years of corporate and sales leadership experience, having generated record-breaking results as a salesperson, head of sales, and as a CEO. As a renowned speaker and independent consultant, some of his accomplishments include being ranked the #1 sales blogger globally by both Top Sales Magazine and also by Best Sales Blogger Awards in 2018. LinkedIn has him ranked as the 3rd best sales expert and thought leader in 2018. Tony was also rated the most influential person in professional selling within Asia Pacific by Top Sales World Magazine from 2017 through 2019. Tony is the co-founder and sales innovation director at Sales IQ Global, and his consulting clients include some of the best-known brands in the world today: Salesforce, Flight Centre Travel Group, Grant Thornton, SAP, IBM, Red Hat, and other market leaders. Pick up Tony's most recent book, Combo Prospecting, today, and keep an eye out for his upcoming book titled Tech-Powered Sales, coming soon. In this episode, Tony speaks on how to build relationships with senior-level executives and how to speak the language of leaders so you can successfully sell in today's marketplace. He emphasizes the need to know your customer, specifically their most important objectives and what measurable key results they need to get there. This is OKRs taken to the next level. It is an honor and a pleasure to present Tony Hughes. So Tony, welcome to the program. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your organization, and why you are so passionate about helping salespeople succeed.
Well, the thing for me is up until about 7 years ago, I ran the Asia Pacific region for North American multinational tech companies. I was the MD for OpenText running APAC. My last corporate gig was for Sugar CRM. I've always had an absolute fascination with professional selling. I think it's vitally important for an economy and for every business. Unless someone sells something, all of the other good things that go on don't actually get to happen. And it's a really tough gig for people. In many ways, a lot of people in it, claim they're in a profession, but don't really act professionally. It's kind of a blue collar trade, wrapped up in a Wall Street suit is one of the ways I really describe it. And it's this weird mashup of amazing skills. You need the passion of a lover. You need to be like an engineer. You need to be a psychologist, a counselor. You need to be able to diagnose problems. You need to be an evangelist. There's all of these things you have to bring together in this weird kind of world of trying to influence people positively. But I've always believed that professional selling should be about, and for me it is about, making a positive difference in the lives of others, both professionally and personally. And unless you truly understand what their big objectives are, what their vision is for a brighter future, what they're trying to achieve, what the impediments or barriers to success are for them, help them drive change successfully in their own organization so they can be successful. Because at the end of the day, when you're selling, what you're really doing is you're selling change. You're helping somebody make a decision to go from current state to a much better future state. And today, 2020 has changed the world. We are in the deepest recession in living memory. But we're also right now in the engine room of the 4th industrial revolution. Automation and AI is becoming very real, and ways of working are changing. Even for sellers now, the ability to get face-to-face with somebody and build that relationship and rapport is now incredibly difficult. I see so many sellers thrashing around like hack amateurs. I can tell you're a golfer with what I can see up on your mantelpiece, in the background, me as well. I just see salespeople struggling with their tools of trade. They They have their laptop way below them, so people are looking up their nostril, and their double chin and their ceiling. They have a bright light behind them with a window, so their face is all black and dark. They haven't invested in a decent microphone. So the basic things of get the laptop camera up to eye height, get your mic sorted out, understand lighting, even using the tools. Like we're on Zoom right now recording this, but they don't understand gallery view and speaker view and the concept of getting in and out of your slides and get people to turn their cameras on and drive engagement. I'm sort of raving on, but the thing is that, selling is tough. I always had a passion for it. So 7 years ago, on the back of my first book that became a business bestseller, I went out on my own to help B2B enterprise sales teams. Did a second book with the American Management Association and HarperCollins a few years ago, Combo Prospecting, about cracking the number one problem. And I noticed in the last podcast I listened for the OKR Q&A show, you had Mike Bird from Red Hat on, and he said the number one problem, in the organization is lack of pipeline. That's the thing I see all over the world, and it's what I really specialize in. So that's what I've been doing for the last 7 years. I work with organizations, including Salesforce. Red Hat is a really good client, mainly tech companies, but also some other corporate clients.
Fantastic. And you touched on this, and the combo prospecting, it's fantastic. So what are some of the challenges you see today in the world of selling?
Well, because we're in a recession, and because all of the buyers are not in the office now, they're all working from home, and everyone's incredibly fatigued. I don't know about you, but I just find I go from, it's back to back, meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting online. It's very fatiguing. And executives have also realized that this is their opportunity to also gate access to them and make meetings a lot shorter. So if a seller wants to get to them, even if they can go into the office and meet with them, they'd rather just let's just do a Zoom call for 15 minutes, like that gives them back 45 minutes of their day rather than a 1 hour thing. They can make it a 15-minute thing. So the biggest challenge for sellers is they need to create opportunity pipeline. That's the cure of all ills almost in sales. If you can have all these other wonderful skills, but if you don't get to open an opportunity, all of the other things are moot. It doesn't matter if you're a good closer, you don't have opportunities to go close, right? So opening, some people say opening is the new closing. It's the binary important thing. And the truth is for sellers today, if we're in a recession, which we are, and if new ways of working is making access to people more difficult because, they're just getting blasted now in digital channels, then you need to elevate as a seller. And that's why I think OKRs is so critical. Unless you can talk the language of leaders, elevate conversations into the C-suite, turn up with a worthwhile point of view based on research that you can evidence and back about how they can realize a vision for a brighter future, they can improve business results, and then you speak to what matters to that person in their role. That's incredibly important because in my mind, if you think about the O in OKRs, right, that big objective, to me, that's the vision, the really big goal that they've got. Mm-hmm. Well, in between that and the key results, is going to be strategies and then initiatives, right? So that they'll have a big objective. They think, okay, so this is our objective. We want to be number one in our marketplace, or whatever it is that they want to do. We want to triple growth. So they go, okay, so what's our strategy to go do that? And, what are the initiatives and how are we going to measure success? Right. And I just find a lot of sellers are very confused between a simple thing like the difference between a KPI and a KRA. They think they're talking about big objectives, goals, outcomes in business, but all they're talking about is activities, or they're talking about attributes about themselves instead of a real business outcome for the customer. Right. So the big challenge for sellers is, how do you elevate into the C-suite? How do you talk the language of leaders? And then as they go and do that, they need to be very customer centric. And that's what I love about your OKR framework. It's all about being completely customer centric and finding real alignment between, the supplier and the customer. In the partnership where you go and you speak truth to power, the customer may think that they want X, but what they really need is Y. So to be able to have the courage and also the aptitude in behind it to go and carry that conversation is really important. And that's the biggest challenge for sellers. How do you elevate the conversation? Because for any salesperson listening to this, and for any business leader listening to this, if a salesperson allows themselves to simply be the transactor of commodities, and where they just think their value is in the relationships they have with people, they are going to go the way of the dodo bird, right? So they are in the process of disappearing. So the new meta skill in the fourth industrial revolution for human beings is going to be empathy and insight, because that level of engagement is what makes a real difference, not just helping someone transact.
I saw that in your latest YouTube. It was fantastic. So all right, so we're going to switch a little bit. I did a little bit of research on you. I'm just kidding. I did a ton of research on you. And in October of 2018, you wrote a blog post entitled "The Ingredients of Successful Selling." And in that post, you wrote, "The best sales professionals prioritize activities so as to be effective and avoid the busy fool syndrome by understanding the difference between what is urgent versus truly important." And I thought that was so profound with regards to objectives and key results, and to the author of the book, Measure What Matters. What really truly matters, what's truly important. So I know that you've been working a little bit with the OKRs, and how were you first introduced to objectives and key results, and what do you find so fascinating about it?
Well, the thing that really introduced me to it is I ran my business my own business in my early 20s. We did really well in Australia, and believe it or not, we sold the company in Australia, and I took it to the USA. So I lived in LA for a few years. I got to travel all over the States. I learned a heck of a lot and lost a lot of money, which is all good. But I didn't go bankrupt. It was all fine. But I really learned some important lessons, really around the need to sell. So when I came back to Australia, I couldn't go back into the same industry again because we're getting royalties for 12 years and there was a non-compete. And I thought, I need to go learn how to sell. It's just a life skill I don't have. But the thing for me is that people get very busy doing things that don't make a difference. So we all know the Pareto principle, the whole thing of 80-20. But the thing I find with sellers is they don't think properly, and even entrepreneurs and business leaders don't think properly about product market fit. Because the truth is, everything begins in business with solving a serious problem for somebody. Unless you're solving a serious problem, there's no serious money available, right? So you've got to think about product market fit. You then need to think about your ideal customer profile. You then need to understand the buyer personas, all of the people in those organizations you'll need to engage to achieve consensus for change, because a big enterprise or government department, especially if you sell to government, it's the land of consensus. So unless you help everybody get on board with this decision, there is going to be no change. So what that all came back to is you need to understand, well, what's the real business result that funds change? What's the commercial value? What's the business case in behind the request? And I often say to sellers today, imagine you went to a potential client, a brand new prospect, and imagine that they were really rude and they said to you, look, don't ask me to come up with money out of my budget to buy your thing, your solution in inverted commas. You tell me how this pays for itself. How does this pay for itself? Right? And if sellers think that way, what they do is they can drive conversations around the commercial value of the business case for change. And that to me just goes right into the wheelhouse of OKRs. Because what really is the big goal, the big objective, the vision for the future that this organization has, and how are they going to measure success? And at the end of the day, to talk the language of leaders, you need to very quickly get to dollars and percentages, and how they can manage their risk in change.
Terrific. When you and I had some brief conversations before we were figuring out maybe what our audience would like to talk a little bit about, we touched on this particular point, which was, why are OKRs essential for sales organizations calling into the large enterprise and federal government accounts?
Okay, so if an organization has an objective and they roll those objectives down to individual sellers, what they need to do is, rather than try and manage by results, which is a very big mistake that